Oh boy, we got a lot to talk about in this lesson. We're going to be talking about the plague. We're going to be talking about the plague. Now, folks, in the Middle Ages, the towns, the villages, they were kind of dirty. They got to be kind of crowded, with trade picking up and all these businesses opening, lots of people moving to the towns, and the people in the Middle Ages did not have the best hygiene. Now, in these towns, they need protection, from people coming in and trying to steal their stuff. So they built big walls, and towers around their towns. But that means all of the structures inside, the houses, buildings, they all start to get kind of built closely together, very packed. So towns became very crowded. They also did not have modern, sewage and waste. So basically, the human excrement, number 2 and number 1, poop and the pee, gets thrown out in the street. So you could be walking down the street, and a second floor apartment, somebody leans out and throws a bucket of human waste out in the street. And that's just what people are walking through, getting hit with. So gross stuff like that. They didn't really have anywhere to go with their trash because they didn't have a garbage collected system like we do. So they would throw the garbage out in the middle of the streets. So they've got bugs and rats and all kinds of stuff all over the streets. Because it's crowded, because it's garbage, rats, it smells bad. The people didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have running water, so they're not taking baths. They're not taking showers. They get pretty dirty. The hygiene's bad. So there's a lot of disease running around. This is a kind of a Lego version of what it would look like. Very crowded, Very crowded. Now picture lots of people on the street. Picture lots of garbage, human waste being thrown in the street. Not super nice. Check out this Ratatouille sketch. We did watch that in class. It kind of explains where the plague came from. But this plague got the nickname the Black Death, and it was a disease that popped up in the 1300s. Basically, these rats hopped on trading ships that were coming from the Middle East, and they came to the towns in Europe. When the rats ran out of food on the ships, or they unloaded the ships in these towns, the rats came off the ships, ran into the towns, and started looking for food. So they start going through people's houses, businesses, all that kind of stuff. And on these rats were little fleas. Fleas are insects that like to eat blood. And so they would bite the rats and get the disease. Then when the rat would die, the fleas would hop off onto the next living thing they could find and bite that thing to get the blood. The fleas ended up biting a lot of humans. So now the humans are getting infected with the plague. It's estimated that 1 out of 3 Europeans died in the plague. So 1 out of every 3 people. So imagine everybody you know, 1 out of every 3 of them getting the plague, and not making it, not surviving. This thing was almost 100% death rate. A lot of diseases, a lot of stuff that we kind of come in contact with now, we can get it. Maybe we get some medicine. Our bodies kind of fight back, and we might pull out and be okay. The bubonic plague, this guy right here, not so much success. If you got it, it was pretty much the end of you. Now, to avoid the sickness, a lot of people left the towns. They realized the towns are crowded, and that's where everybody's getting sick. Let's leave. They go out into the country. Well, that would work if you had family out there. That would work if you were rich and you had a mansion or a castle out there. But for a lot of people, that's not really an option. Now, the plague got so bad and so many people were dying, trade stopped. Farming stopped. So now we don't have food. We don't have goods. We don't have food. And war is going to stop. Just because there's not enough people to be in the armies, Not enough soldiers because people are dying from this disease. Now, there are 3 types of the plague: bubonic plague, septicemic plague, and pneumonic plague. Multiple ways that these things can kind of spread. 2 major ones is the bubonic plague would hop from these fleas, and the fleas would bite people, and people would get it. Pneumonic plague is spread through the air, so coughing, germs going through the respiratory droplets through the air, people breathing that in, touching it, touching their face. Now, signs and symptoms of the plague typically popped up between 2 to 7 days after the person was infected. So people were walking around sick, and they didn't know it. They were spreading it, and they didn't know it. Now, the symptoms of the plague included painful or enlarged lymph nodes. We'll show those in a second. And they were called buboes. I'll show you those. Those are kind of gross. They would have chills. They'd be sweaty. They'd have headaches, fever. They'd feel weak. Lots of tissue bleeding, even internal tissue bleeding and big bruises. Okay? And this thing was almost always fatal. Now here is some art from the Middle Ages, from the plague periods. Okay, these are the people with the swollen lymph nodes. Okay, the big pustules, the big buboes that would pop up all over the body. Here is some more artwork from the Middle Ages of people dying in the street. Right, we have so many bodies that people were just piled up in the street dead. Here is what a bubo or swollen lymph node would have looked like. That would have kept swelling until eventually it pops. Really gross, like a huge pimple, have pus on it, and would smell really bad too. Now, there's going to be some major changes. Let's see. I think I might have missed them. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay. Let me go back here. So some major changes that are going to happen, and we'll explain how this kind of happens, is business people are going to become more important after the plague. The feudal system, trading that land and protection for service and loyalty, that's going to fall apart even more. Townspeople are going to end up with more money to spend on fun things. We'll talk about that too. Education's going to grow. Universities are going to grow. There's going to be a rise in business class, people making money who aren't the kings and the nobles. And some of the lords and the nobles, people who own the land, they're going to lose some power. So let's talk about that for a second. So these big life changes, a couple realities here. After the plague, because so many people died, there were less farmers and there were less peasants. At the same time, there was the same amount of land. What's going to happen is these lords and nobles who owned all this land, they're going to realize somebody needs to work this land, but all of our peasants and farmers died. So the peasants and farmers who are left over are going to say, sure, we will work on your land, we will work on your farm, but now we want something in return. We're not going to do it for free. You got to pay us. So the peasants start to make a little bit of money. So now the peasants are demanding wages. The peasants now can save up and buy some of their own land. Now that they're buying their own land, well, now they don't need the nobles anymore. They don't need the lords anymore. So what starts to happen to feudalism? Feudalism starts to fall apart because peasants can make their own money, buy their own land. They don't need the lords. They don't need the nobles. Okay? So poor people start to get more power. Same with business owners. Okay? Now, folks, real quick, before we move too far, I do want to show you this. You guys do have a plague PSA to do. Okay, so your next project, I handed these out and explained it in class. Let me pull up. Yeah, this is a better version of it. Okay. Basically, your job is to warn people about the plague coming. We're pretending that you're back in the Middle Ages. Okay, and you're going to create a public service announcement, basically a poster or a commercial warning people about the plague. And you need to include a picture that basically warns people. Okay, it could be something you draw yourself about the plague. It could be something you find online about the plague. Okay, Google Images. On your poster, in your commercial, you have to explain where the plague comes from and how it spreads. You have to make up you need to find name of 2 European cities, have to be European, that are safe to travel to, that haven't got the plague yet. You have to come up with 2 European cities that maybe got hit hard by the plague that people should not go to. You have to identify 2 things that might be good for people to bring with them on the trip, and identify 2 things that they could do to keep themselves safe. Okay, maybe some social distancing, maybe some hygiene, right? Showering so you get the fleas off you, so you don't smell dirty and the fleas don't want to bite you. Okay, maybe covering your mouth so you don't get the pneumonic plague, right? Which is one of the forms. And you're designing. Actually, you know what? Forget this last part. Forget number 7. Okay, I don't like that anymore. And you're just basically designing these posters. You can do it on Google Docs, Canva. You can hand draw one. You can create a commercial if that's more your style or what you want to do. If you have any questions about any of these requirements, hit me up on email or pull me aside, talk to me, and we'll help you out. All right, folks, good luck. If you need help, let me know.